What is up, everyone? This is Arstrake, and for another video today I'm going to be doing the Vaykor Hek. I've already done a video on the Santi Tigra, so go ahead and check that out. These are specifically for the Sortie 3 for high-level enemies, especially when you have to do specific weapons on specific missions. Now, I had to take off my Sweeper Prime because any shotgun is going to clash with any type of shotgun that we have, since the Sweeper Prime is actually a shotgun instead of, a pistol or a rifle or something like that. So let's go ahead and dive into it real quick. I'm going to go over this very briefly. I'm going to go ahead and stick with specific builds for specific enemies. This one in particular is for a Grineer, so you're going to want to have to change accordingly on a few mods. But the normal ones that you're always going to want to keep is the Prime Point Blank, Hell's Chamber for multi-shot, Vicious Spread for more damage, and a little bit extra spread. And we're going to end up throwing out a Breach Floater. Now, Breach Floater is kind of expensive for those who can't afford it. Not afforded it. Wow, that was messed up. You can use the knockoff version of Fletcher, which ends up doing around 30% puncture damage as opposed to 120. So instead of hitting your 6,000 marker on your puncture damage, you're going to end up pushing closer to 2,000 to 1,500 instead, and that's a major difference. I do like to throw on something specific for a Grineer because I'm going to kill a Grineer in this video, and I'm going to end up using Cleansing Grineer. Now, depending on who you're killing, whether it's a Corpus, Grineer, or Infested, you're going to want to go ahead and swap this out accordingly with the Cleanse Grineer, Cleanse Corpus, Cleanse Infested, depending on what it is. The other thing you're going to want to end up swapping out is your elemental mods. Now, your elemental mods is another contributing factor when it comes to specific enemies. So if I was doing Infested, for instance, I would want blast damage instead of radiation. So I'd basically just be swapping out Shell Shock with some type of Frigid Blast or something like that. Now, what you can do on this is first of all, I do like to keep Blaze. One, for more damage, and two, it has heat. If you want to take it out, you can, but you'll be losing that extra 60% on damage. What I would end up swapping out with Shell Shock is actually a charged shell, which is 90%, so you're gaining an extra 30% on electrical damage. The only difference is I'm at a 67.5% chance on status for elemental damage. Now, I like to keep it relatively high, especially for the Vaykor Hek, because the elemental damage makes a big difference when shooting him, because puncture can only do so much. Now, what I do like to throw on there is laser sight. You don't necessarily have to, but it is an option. What it does is on headshots, it's kind of like an Argon scope. It's going to boost your critical chance anyways for this, which is going to do a lot more damage as long as you can shoot them relatively close to the head. It doesn't necessarily have to be the head, but it just has to be close. I am going to bring my low-key prime just because I can go invisible, and, well, let me show you that again. I'm bringing Cure Heavy Gunner, which is at level 100. That was really fast. I didn't mean to go so quick. And I'm going to go invisible so my low-key can so you can still see the damage numbers on the enemy as opposed to, him shooting me shooting him, and it causes a whole big issue. So obviously what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to shoot him in the head. It's going to be a little bit difficult on specific enemies, but as you can see, once I get him in the head, I start that 9 seconds on the top right where my health and shield is, and I can shred through him pretty quickly, as long as he's not aiming up, which is kind of odd to begin with. So you can see some shots are doing a little bit less damage, and then when I get into the higher critical damage, just kind of blowing this guy away. Now, obviously not all enemies are going to be level 100, so if you're shooting a little bit lower enemies, depending, let's say, let me get rid of this Cure Grineer. Let's throw in about 8 of them per 1 bullet, I guess. And let's knock these guys down to around 60 or so, which is still pretty strong when it comes to it. This is going to be stronger than most basic missions, not including the sortie, since you're getting up into the hundreds. But as long as you get up in here and you aim, shoot them towards the head, you're going to be doing quite a bit of damage anyways. I mean, I'm one-shotting these guys for the most part, 1 or 2 shots, which is pretty good as long as you aim. Now, what you can do instead of laser sight is you can swap it out for an additional mod like that charged shell or a heat mod that's around 90% instead of a status chance, only because that's going to add more elemental damage if you don't want to aim. Now, you might take a little bit of reduction on damage, but you don't have to aim. So, kind of depends on what you want your trade-off to be. Me personally, I don't mind the laser sight because one, it's a shotgun. You want to make sure you're hitting your target, just because the bullets on a shotgun don't go very far, just like it is in real life. So the further the distance, the less impact it's going to have on an enemy. One thing I do like is the laser sight, but if you don't want to aim, you can just go ahead and take your charge cell and replace your laser sight. Now, I don't have enough polarity slots on here to show you exactly what it is, but if we're looking at about another 90% on a 5,000 radiation, you're probably going to push really close to about 8,000 to 9,000 would be my estimated guess, which is quite a bit. You can also throw down your Fletcher instead, throwing an additional 30% on puncture damage, boosting you up to probably closer to around 75 to 8,000 additional puncture, since you already have that 120 on there, which is going to do even more puncture damage. But if you're fighting specific enemies like Grenier, I would actually suggest an elemental mod as opposed to a Fletcher, and I would also suggest a mod where you're not adding additional status chance and more that extra 30% on the actual elemental damage. And when I say the difference, I'm looking at 90% on this electrical, and then I'm looking at 60% on this electrical and status chance. So I would prefer more elemental damage to status chance, since 67 is still quite high. If you want to go ahead and throw on something else like a cold or a toxin with more status chance, you're more than welcome to do so. You're going to add up to 82% in status chance, which I don't think is worth a reduction in 30% on elemental damage, but you can make your call. And as always, though, that is another one of your syndicate mods. Go ahead and check out this Anti-Tigris, which is my personal favorite when it comes to shotguns. And I do bring my low-key for any type of sortie mission when it comes down to rescue, sabotage, or even spy missions. Big thing that I like to do is you can always check on my low-key primes, as I always have that hush mod on there. So anytime you're shooting something, you're not going to be able to hear it, or the enemies aren't going to be able to hear it, which makes a big difference. So they're not swarming you the moment you're shooting these enemies. This is mostly for, shoot a couple enemies if they're in your way. Like on a spy mission, they have a couple of enemies that are just like right there that, once your visibility goes away, you want to get rid of them. So I go invisible, hush augment mod, kill all the enemies in the room, and then go back to my hacking, since hacking takes quite a while. But as always, hit that like button and subscribe, and have a good one, and check out my other videos. And if you guys are going to give me a compliment, I will take those in spades. I will take as many as you want to offer, and watch this thing as many times as you can. Alright guys, have a good one, and yeah, I know I'm glowing. It's because I'm awesome. Alright guys, peace out.